Alright guys, we are now moving on to pattern number 3. This is kind of a crazy looking one. You can definitely see it looks a little more intense than the previous ones we've done. But this one's probably not too bad. Now this one's kind of cool though because you can approach this one in so many different ways. And I think what most people would do just looking at it is you would see like, okay, so it's definitely circular shapes. And if you've seen some of the other videos like pattern 1, we know we've done that with a disc. And I could do an edge detect, right, to kind of get the border of the disc. So it almost feels like it's just a bunch of edge detect discs that are just kind of stacking and scaling on each other from the center to the outside. And then those repeat and kind of overlap on another set of them in the background. But instead of me doing this through a bunch of like circular discs and edge detects, I wanted to show you guys another really cool node in here that is called the shape mapper. So this is kind of my finished one here. As you can tell, it's not really too overly complicated, but let's try doing this one from scratch. We're going to do Command N, new project. We're going to call this pattern 3, empty template, 2040 by 2048. Hit OK. All right, now what we're going to start off with is hitting space. We're going to make stripes. This probably seems like the exact opposite of what you would want. Why would we want stripes when we're clearly doing circles? You're going to see. Now, the first thing with stripes is these are set up to be a diagonal effect. So it's almost connecting points from here to up in the corner. If you move the shift, you can see how it's kind of changing where they connect. If you move it all the way down, it'll completely flatten out. So you kind of get these bands that are horizontal. That's what we want. Now from here, if I look back on the reference, I want to count how many white stripes or how many white sections we have in the little circular pattern. I have 1 in the middle, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 6 white sections total with black borders around them. So that means in the stripe, we're going to go stripes 6. Okay, that is right. Now the thickness of the black border is much thinner compared to what I'm getting. So we're going to go down here to the width, and okay, we want to go up. Let's try 0.8. That probably has about the right size, I think. It's pretty close. All right, now the next thing we're going to do is make sure we have it selected, hit space. We're going to do the shape mapper. And you can kind of see immediately what this is doing. This is a really cool node. What the shape mapper does is it takes this as an input, puts it into here, and then depending on what your shape is you're picking, you can see how it tries to like almost convert this into this kind of like circular or polygonal effect. Really kind of cool stuff. I love the shape mapper quite a bit, but let's just stick with circle. And let's go back here. Alright, it needs to be a lot smaller. So let's bring in, let's see, width. It's going to change that. Let's check the radius. Okay, I definitely want this because I need to scale it in. Let's say width. It will scale it out. So I'm going to do no radius, so it goes to the middle. We're going to bring the width up because I do want this to be kind of, this is one tileable section. So I'm trying to get this to basically fit inside of my sort of, I guess, 0 to 1 space. So let's just bring that up to maybe right at 1. Now the issue I'm kind of noticing right here is I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's right, but look at what's happening in the middle. See that little dot? There's no dot here. Huh, well, how do I fix that? The issue is because of how this is currently positioned. Because it's just feeding off the stripe. The dot is coming from either this top black point here or the one on the bottom right there here. So if I just translate it and remove either the black or on the top or the bottom, I have a feeling we're going to get rid of that little dot. So we're going to do a transform 2D between these two guys. So we're just going to put that right there. And we're going to double click on the shape mapper so I can see it. We're then going to click on the transform 2D, and I'm just going to move it vertically. So it's kind of weird because you're looking at this result, but I'm actually moving the tiled lines up and down. So let's do vertical offset Y. Oh, there it is. See how it's already working? Now it is a little touchy because you can see if I go too far, it'll kind of like start repeating itself. So what I'm going to kind of look at is roughly how big that circle should be in the middle. Probably like that is pretty good. Let me double check it. And I think my thickness is probably a little bit too much. So I could go back here and then maybe bring the width down to like, actually up to 0.9. Let me just check that again. Maybe 0.85. We're pretty close. I think that looks pretty good. Let me double click on this guy and see what's happening down here. Now what I could do to make this a little easier, if I go to the top, I could try, if you like zoom in, if you hold down shift and you kind of click, you can kind of move this up and down. So I could double click on this guy to view it, click on this. Instead of moving the little Y offset, hold shift and click up and down and just kind of move it just enough before it repeats. Yes, there's eating into it. Let's back up, move it down. I just want to get rid of that circle right about, I think that might be the right width. Let me check. So it's about the same width as one of those lines. That's pretty close. Probably right around there is about what I want. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, now I do have this extra little piece right here. I'm not too worried about that though. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This part is perfect. I just have this little extra sliver on the outside. That's going to be easy to get rid of. All right, so next up is going to be us kind of removing this and getting it to tile. So let's try to get rid of that outside piece. What I'm going to do to actually get rid of this a much easier way instead of cropping it, we're going to do a transform 2D. We're going to go into here. Now I'm going to scale it up a little bit, and I'm just doing it to the point where that gets pushed out of the frame. Now see what's happening though when I do that? How it's not really removing any of this stuff right here. So let's kind of back up. Let's get rid of this. Next to this guy, since that transform isn't getting rid of everything, let's do a blend, and we're going to try to physically cut that part out. So I'm going to come down here and make another shape. I guess we can put it above it, and we're going to have this set to disk, and I'm going to have this guy connecting into the top. So this disk is the foreground, that's the background, and I'm going to put this to a multiply, and watch what happens if I scale down the disk. So I'm getting rid of that little extra chunk I didn't need. There we go. That looks about right. So this, even though it's not going to the edge, that is my shape. Now I want to push this closer to the border, where that black border just barely hits it. We're almost there. So after this guy, we're going to make a transform 2D. I'm not going to move it yet. I just want it there because I know I'm going to use it. And then after the transform 2D, let's get the tile generator connected. And okay, this, see how when I had it selected, if I had to do a tile generator, it's putting it in the background. Hold shift, click, and click up on the top part. We need to move it to the pattern input, not the background. That's going to happen a lot in these videos. Let's double click on the generator. We're going to say image input. Okay, it's tiling. See that gap? That's what we're going to fix with the transform 2D. But let's also get the tile amount right. This is a 4 by 4. All right, not too bad. Let's click on it. Oh, sorry, on the generator, we're going to put this to 4x, 4y. Okay, let's fix the gap. So that's why we have the transform here. So I can still look at the generator. We're going to click on the transform. And then if I just kind of go down to the corner, I'm going to hold down Command and Shift and pull this guy out farther. And that's keeping a uniform scale to right about there. Let me double check that. That's pretty close. I think I have to go just a little more. Let's do that right there. All right, I think I'm pretty happy with that. Now, this is kind of that foreground part. The only thing we're missing is that same effect in the background. So how do we do that? Well, I could do it before the generator. I could also like offset this with another generator and stack this on that guy. But let's just try to get this tiling properly before it even hits the generator. So what we're going to do is take this transform. Let's move this over a little bit. And we're going to make another transform from it. So this goes into this guy. And we're going to offset this by 0.5, 0.5. So I have this one, and see how I'm kind of creating that kind of 50% offset version that's going to be behind it? That's these guys. All right, now how do I get these guys to blend? Well, let's see. Well, if I do a blend, I want to layer this on top of that. Okay, so if I kind of think about the way your input order would work, I know that this should be the foreground. This should be the background. And now we run into an issue. And I could start clicking through these and like, subtract, multiply, add. I'm just hitting all the ones we've kind of done at some point. They're all not working. So what do we have to do? Well, this does need to be set to a copy. The reason why it's not working is because it needs a mask to tell it where this physically layers on top of that one. These other blend modes are not going to work. So what we're going to do is take the same disk, that shape, and I wonder if we can use it as the mask input. I don't know if it's going to be the right size, but let's find out. Oh, it's so close. Now, I can actually use the same disk, but you can kind of tell that it's probably a little too small. I think what's happening is the disk is cutting off this really thin border of black on the outside. So let's do one thing different. I am going to use the disk, but we're going to have the disk go into a transform node. So that way I can scale it and control where they kind of blend together. So let's take the transformed version of the disk as the opacity. Now it doesn't look right yet, but if I click on that transform to scale the disk down, I'm just going to zoom in, hold Command and Shift, click in a corner, and let's go out farther. Oh, see what's happening? As I'm widening that disk out, I'm kind of fixing that weird crop issue we had. I'm just getting it to be the right thickness. That looks about the same. That's a pretty good match. So now this is my tileable pattern. So I bet if I take that and put it in the tile generator, let's see what happens. Look what we got. Wow, that's actually really close. I wonder if I even have those same small triangles. Oh, that's all. It's a little bigger in this one. So I probably have my scale just like a tiny bit off on one of these guys where that circular pattern's just a bit too large. But I'm going to say this is a victory. And we got that one pretty much perfect. And if I hit space, you can see again that does tile outside of that. Awesome. A little more complicated, but you can again see it's not really that bad. And that is how we do pattern number 3.